Okay, so welcome back. In this video, we're going to review a signal generator, a low-priced, very functional signal generator. And the one I bought is by Koolertron. And as we'll talk about briefly, I think the identical device is also sold under different brand names. So this hopefully will help you with those too if you're looking at buying a signal generator. Now, before we get into this, I wanted to encourage you, if you enjoy these tech videos on this channel or any other channel for that matter, I encourage you to support them. You know, these videos honestly take a lot of effort to make, and most of the tech folks generally have a lot of experience too. So if you appreciate that, the time and effort and the experience it takes, even if you don't, 100% disagree with the outcomes or they're not entertaining enough or whatever it is, I still encourage you to support the channels because, honestly, most of the these small channels like mine, the tech channels, get basically nothing in return. The income from doing these videos for most of us is very small, if not totally negligible. For example, I think most channels need to get about 1,000 views to get $1 of revenue just from the YouTube money support. So, that's a lot because, I can put a video up, a tech video, and it can, be around for a couple months and only get, 30 or 40 or 50 views. So that is, I'm getting not even pennies over a month's period for each video. So it's basically getting nothing in return, and you're only doing it because you enjoy doing it. And I think that's a lot of tech videos are in the same position where, at some point they're just going to fold up shop. And I've seen it happen a lot lately where people just kind of give up because they're getting nothing in return. They lose interest and they just stop. And I think that's going to get more and more. It's going to increase exponentially in coming years as YouTube becomes more and more about entertainment and, music videos and cats playing piano and that kind of thing. So if you enjoy and like these tech videos, I encourage you to support the channels by, of course, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and most of all, if you really think there's something that can benefit others, tell your friends, say, hey, there's a channel, maybe even if you don't agree with it 100%, maybe it can help somebody else and get your friends interested. So, the tech channels hopefully will be able to survive because they get, at least a little bit in return that makes it worth, the hours and hours of editing videos and preparing videos and all that. So anyway, to the review, what I'm going to do is I'm going to review the model I bought, which is a Koolertron CJDS66. And here's an image of it up top. And again, you will probably see a FeelTech or a KKMoon or a Junce or a JunTek. I assume they're all different Chinese manufacturers. And I think they've all taken pretty much this one model and rebranded it under different names. But I believe it's all the same model. Maybe they've tweaked the front interface a little bit, but I think, what I'm discussing here should probably help you a lot with these other devices because I think at the end of the day, it's probably the same box or a similar box. I'm going to be reviewing the 15 megahertz version of this Koolertron, and it cost me just a little over $100. And you can get up to 60 megahertz if you really need that. Okay, so here is the Koolertron 15 megahertz signal generator. And if you first pick it up, first thing you notice, this thing is very light. It weighs a couple pounds. Imagine that this is just a plastic box, and only thing they have inside is probably a half-width printed circuit board. So it's a very light device. And if you look on the back, you can see that it takes a DC 5 in from a wall adapter. So there's not even a power supply in here, which is why it's so light. It's just a printed circuit board and basically an empty box. So it's a very light device. On the back, you've got a USB connection, and it comes with a USB cable. Got a USB cable it comes with. And the reason for that is so you can hook this up to your computer and you can run some software, and we'll talk about that in a bit. It's also got a TTL connector. Exactly what that's used for, I don't know, but if you need it, you got it. And it says Koolertron, doesn't say much else. If you look on the device, there's really not much else information on here. It's that's about it. So it comes with, as would be expected, a 5-volt wall adapter, and I believe in my measurements this device only takes about 5 watts when it's operating. So again, great for a wall adapter. You also get a CD, which I haven't used it, but it presumably has some software on it. You can get this online too, so we're going to talk about that instead of using the CD. I don't even have a CD reader or CD drive. You also get 2 BNC to alligator clip leads, and of course that's why, the reason why is because you've got 2 channels. So this is a 2-channel device. So you also get a fairly useless manual, as can be expected. And I believe you also get a BNC to BNC cable, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So on the front here, you basically got, you can see channel 1 and channel 2. So you can output 2 channels of information simultaneously. You can generate 2 signals and put it out, which is nice because let's say you wanted to generate a PWM signal and you wanted to use a, for example, a sine wave and do a comparison between that and a sawtooth. You can generate both here and then feed it into your circuit to a comparator and actually generate a PWM signal. I haven't tried that, but I think that's probably very doable. External input. Now this says it's a DDS signal generator counter. That's because you can input a signal from another device and measure frequency, and it can do counting on pulses. Very surprising, it's got all this functionality. We'll show you how you can measure frequency on an external signal. But basically, you've got the controls and you've got your display. And what I'll do is I'll turn it on and show you what it does. One other thing to keep in mind, since it is so light, and again, we've got a stand here. Since it's so light, you know, the first time I bought this and I pulled out the stand, this thing was wobbling. So, you know, it's a very light and not very sturdy box. You can see it's still wobbling a little bit. So don't expect a big heavy device. You know, when you press the buttons, it's going to move, right? So just keep in mind you're buying a very light and not very sturdy device. So what I'll do is I will turn it on and we'll see what we got. Okay, so what I've done is I've turned it on and I've hooked it up to my oscilloscope, and I'm generating a square wave. And the reason I'm doing this, I want to show you, first of all, a big issue I encountered. You may never encounter it, but it really caused me some head scratching for a while to figure out what was going on. You can see right now I've got a 10,000 hertz, and we'll talk about this display in a bit, but it's basically a 10,000 hertz or 10 kilohertz square wave with a 5-volt amplitude. And you can see it's showing that here. I'm measuring up here on the scope, I'm measuring 9.9999 kilohertz. So that's right. And that's a plus or minus 5 volt or 2.5 volt waveform. So when I was operating this, I noticed at one point I looked at my square wave and it looked like this. Okay? And I said, wait a minute, what, you know, before it was a perfect square wave, now it looks like this. Well, after a bunch of head scratching, I finally figured out that this was a bad set of test lead. Okay, there was a problem as I move this lead, it distorts the wave. So it took me a long time to figure it out, but finally I realized this is junk, and I've marked it as dead. But, you know, you got to be careful again. These are low-priced devices, and, you know, you got to be very careful. You can't expect they're going to be perfect. So now I got to go buy another test lead set. Now, the other problem I had with the test lead is you can see this cover on the clip, and you can see it's very shiny. It turns out this is extremely slippery. So if I try and open this, it slides sideways. And it happens 90% of the time. I try and open it, and it slides sideways and closes. It's very difficult to get this thing open without it sliding. So another reason why you might want to be prepared to spend another 10 or 20 bucks on a set of test leads if you buy this device or one similar to it. Again, they're low price, you get what you pay for. Okay, now I've started up my signal generator, and I've connected using a good lead. One of the leads was good, one was bad, as we just discussed. I hooked that up to channel 1 of my oscilloscope, and here's what you get upon startup. When you originally start it, you have to check what language you want, English or Chinese, I believe, and you just check English. But here you get, it outputs a default, you can see a sine wave, and up top is channel 1, this yellow, and on the bottom is channel 2. And you select which one by these channel 1 or channel 2 buttons. So I'm on channel 1, I can go to channel 2, and you can see this dot jumps down to channel 2, and then I can change the settings on channel 2. So I go back to channel 1, and it defaults to a sine wave, and you can see here, this is actually saying 10,000 hertz. Now, one of the unfortunate things about this display is it's got commas on the top instead of normally it should be on the bottom. But this is actually hertz, 0.00 hertz, and this is 000, comma, 01, comma. So you can see you can get up into the megahertz if you fill in these two numbers. But right now it defaults to 10,000 hertz. And you can see it is a 5-volt magnitude, and that refers to peak-to-peak value. So you can see here on the scope, it's measuring 1 volt per division, so it's 1, 2.5. So the total is 5 volts. So don't think this is peak, this is peak-to-peak, all right? And then you can add an offset. You can add a DC offset. Let me show you what that is. You just hit the offset button. And you can, right now there's I don't know if you can see the red square over this second digit. If I want to offset, say, a volt, I hit this left arrow, it goes over to the ones digit, and I can increase that and look at the sine wave. You can see it jumps up by a volt, and now it's at a volt of offset. So this is good if you want to do an offset, you know, you want to feed into a MOSFET with an offset or whatever, and we'll talk about that in a different video. So also you can set duty cycle for square waves. Basically, I really like this interface. It seems very intuitive, and it's really easy to understand, which is good because the instruction manual is pretty bad. So basically, all you do is you click the button, like if you want to change frequency or amplitude or offset or duty or phase, and that's it. Now it's also got a waveform, and it actually updates this as you change values. Now let's change this. Right now it defaults to sine, so let's click on this wave button, and you can see it highlights this sine, and it says this is on, and now I can change from a sine to a square to a pulse to a triangle to an arbitrary. The one great thing about this signal generator is you can do an absolute ton of different waveforms. And you can even make your own waveforms. And I believe, I haven't tried this, but I believe if you hook it up via USB to your computer, you can do a whole lot of waveform generation, manipulation of custom waveforms. So it really is to me, a very impressive device for the price. So let's go to a square wave, and it automatically updates the square wave on the display. So I can go to amplitude, and it says 5 volts. Let's say I want to take it down to 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can see it's updating right here. So really very nice, impressive device, and you can do the same for channel 2. Now, this is rated at 15 megahertz. Now, if you've done any electronics work, you know that when they say it's rated at, say, 15 megahertz, yeah, it's rated at 15 megahertz for some stuff, but in general, you probably aren't going to get that. So let's show exactly what I mean by that. So here we're at 9 kilohertz. And I'm going to bring that down. I've got a square wave. I'm going to bring this to 0. And then I'm going to move it over and go up to the megahertz range. All right. So let's hit 1. So here's 1 megahertz. Let me move it out. And you can see now I'm starting to get a little bit of ringing here. All right. Not bad, but when you get up to around over 1 megahertz, you're going to start to see some stuff. And again, this is a 15 megahertz scope. So I'll bring it up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let me zoom this out a bit. And you can see now you're getting into some serious distortion here, okay? So now again, the other thing is, this is rated for 20 volts. You'll see in the spec sheet it's rated for 20 volts, but that's again peak to peak, which means 10 volts plus, 10 volts minus. Now I'm on 5 volts here. So let's see what happens if I go to, say, 10 volts. So let's try and increase. I'm going to 6 volts, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I'm at 20 volts, and look at that. It's totally washed out. I mean, it looks nothing like a square wave. Now let's bring this up even higher frequency. I went up to 11, and look at that, it jumped back to 10. So it knows that over about 10 or 11 megahertz, it's got very poor output. So it automatically adjusts so that you can't go over 10 volts peak to peak, or 5 volts on each side of the wave. So it kind of, which is nice, I suppose. It's a nice feature where it automatically jumps down to its capability. But again, you've got a lot of distortion here. So, yeah, it depends on what you need. This might be fine for most people. But just be aware that when they say 15 megahertz or 20 or 30 or 60, you got to take it with a grain of salt, and you got to be aware that you may get some undesirable results when you're getting up in that range. Okay, so let me give you a brief tour through some of the built-in waveforms you can generate. First of all, let me mention this is not a constant current source, okay? There's no constant current adjustment, and I think rated output in amps is about 1/10 of an amp, 100 milliamps. So you're not going to get constant current. It's just a voltage source with a 50 ohm output. The other thing I want to mention is that I don't believe this model has AM and FM built in, okay? You can of course you can generate the two signals, the modulating and modulated signals, and do it externally, but I don't think you can do it internally. I think some of the other models that are similar to this one might have AM, FM built in, but I haven't been able to find it on this. So if you want AM and FM, you need to look around and make sure you got the right model. So, as I said before, there's a lot of waveforms, okay? So I'm in the waveform section, And all you do is you scroll through the wheel and look on the oscilloscope. We've got sine wave, we've got square wave, we've got pulse wave, we've got triangle wave. So now if I want a sawtooth wave, it doesn't have that directly built in, but you can take the triangle wave and you can adjust the duty cycle. So I'm on duty and here I'm at 50% and it gives me a triangle wave. And if I adjust it, I increase the duty, I'm up to 60, 70. You can see that now it's turning into a sawtooth wave. And if I go up to 100%, it's now a sawtooth wave. So you can get it, you just have to tweak the dials. Now, the next one is, we'll go to waveform, triangle. We've got partial sine wave. We've got a CMOS for CMOS, if you're doing CMOS and TTL, DC. And we've got half wave rectified sine wave. We've got a full wave rectified. We've got a positive ladder, a negative ladder. We've got a noise signal. We've got exponential rise, exponential decay, multi-tone. We've got a sync wave. We've got Lorentz function. And then you've got a whole ton of arbitrary functions that I believe you can generate. I think this is using your computer through the USB to generate those waves. I haven't done it, but it's a whole area that you can explore. Now you can also generate a sweep frequency by going into this mod button, modulation button. And we've got sweep frequency channel 1, sweep frequency channel 2, then we've got pulse generator channel 1. Now the other thing you can do is use it, as it says on the top, it is a counter, a frequency counter. So what I've done is I've hooked up the probe compensation 1 kilohertz square wave from my oscilloscope into this external input. And I should be able to measure that it's a 1 kilohertz signal coming in here. So I'll go to the measure, and it's in the measure function, coupling AC with the external in, and you can see it measures 999 hertz, or 1 kilohertz, so it's right on. 50% duty cycle. So you can see it's it does frequency counter. It does some other functions in here, but just so you know, it does some simple frequency counter. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the software that you can put on your computer and connect up via USB to this device. I haven't used it myself, but you can download the software from this website up here. And this I got from some of the responses to some of the questions on Amazon for this device, where the manufacturer comes back and gave this file location. I downloaded it, and it seems to have the correct, it's got like 3 sets of files. HTTP amazonfiles.s3.amazonaws.com/dds.rar. So it's a single file. You open it up and it's got a bunch of stuff in it. And here's what you get when you download it. DDS folder, and then there's setup.exe and some Visa files setup, and English, the PDFs for the, not only for the fairly useless guide, but also for the PC. It's a fairly large PDF. And then CH340 drive, I don't know what that is, but basically you can install those and try it out. Again, this is the interface it gives you. I got that from the PDF manual. Now I also noticed that some of the other vendors that have that are selling what seems to be the same device, like KKMoon and some of the others, it looks like their software might be a little bit better. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, different colors, but so you might want to look around with some of the other vendors what they have available for software. But anyway, it looks, I believe this is where you can set up, like over here, set up the arbitrary waveforms and design them and that kind of thing. So in summary on this, Koolertron CJDS66 15M, First of all, beware of the janky probes. Again, it could be very messy and confusing. And again, the alligator clip covers are incredibly annoying as far as I can see. Again, they say 20 volts peak to peak. You get that generally, 10 megahertz or less. So just make sure you know that, the maximums are not going to be obtainable at the high frequencies. And anything greater than 11 megahertz, the amplitude switches down to 5 volts peak to peak, or 10 volts, or 5 volts peak to peak. So when you get in the high frequencies with this 15 megahertz unit, and I assume with the other ones, don't expect too much. The waveforms get distorted greater than 5 volts peak and in the megahertz ranges, especially the non-sine waves. The unit's very light and slides on the bench, and it's got the annoying interface. But otherwise, that's about it for this. I hope this helps. Take care and have a really good day. Thanks.